Well, I'd like to welcome everyone to another set of videos that we've put together to give our partners and our clients some more insight into the restaurant industry in Asia Pacific. And I'm in a beautiful Italian restaurant here. We're in the Fort Bonifacio section of Manila, which is a rapidly growing, very contemporary, young urban section. So today we're going to talk about Western restaurants. And I think it's important that people understand that the introduction to Western restaurants really came in the early 1970s with the American fast food chains, the QSRs, the McDonald's and the KFCs. They went into Japan, Korea, other markets in the early 1970s, and they fairly well dominated the fast food industry for many years. In the late 1970s, Pizza Hut came along and was kind of the first introduction to pizza or American style, if you can call it Italian. The success of American QSR or fast food was actually a hindrance to the development of more Western-style American restaurants, such as casual dining, because it gave consumers an image of American food as essentially oily, big portions, kind of junk food. And that essentially hurt a lot of the American casual dining chains, such as the Chili's or the TGI Fridays or the Outback Steakhouses, because of the fact that people equate American food in general with fast food. The other interesting thing to note is that, generally speaking, Asian consumers, whether they're Vietnamese, Filipinos, or Indonesians, they like Western food, but it's not something that you eat regularly, but you eat there on special occasions. And they like to eat Western food, but on their own terms. Very similar to Chinese food in the United States, where a Chinese person would probably find Chinese food in the United States not to be very palatable, but Americans like it. So there's been a growth recently of a lot of Western restaurants, primarily Italian, but with a twist. For example, in Korea, there's the growth of Mad for Garlic, which is a Koreanized Italian restaurant. There's another chain that's grown very rapidly called Blacksmith, which is another Koreanized Italian restaurant. In Japan, you've had the growth of Capricciosa or Saizeriya, which are kind of Italian-themed restaurants, but with very Japanese ingredients. So I think what you see is within the Western segments, Italian food is by far the most preferred, but it tends to be very Asianized. Another good example of kind of the Asianization of Western cuisine is in Japan with something called Yoshoku. Yoshoku has been in Japan since probably the 1950s or 1940s. And it's kind of the Japanese view of what Western food should be. You see things like fried pork cutlet sandwiches, or you see omelets with rice inside, or you see pilaf. And those are the kind of Western food that Japanese love, but you won't find any of it in a Western country. The other point I would make is that American fast food, or QSR, is now getting a run for their money in many of these Asian countries by local entrepreneurs that are Asianizing their Western concepts or even making local cuisine in a fast food setting. The Philippines, where I am today, is obviously famous for the growth of Jollibee, which is a more Filipino-flavored American fast food chain and is the dominant chain in the Philippines, surpassing McDonald's or KFC. In China, you see a lot of Chinese fast food chains growing rapidly with Daniyang dumplings or Yonghe Dawang or Zheng Kung Fu, many examples that are growing. So you've got American fast food chains cannot rest on their laurels because lots of local cuisines, Asian versions of American cuisine or local cuisines are learning through technology how to deliver a fast food experience, and that poses a major challenge to these American fast food chains over time.